Hi there. Today I'm going to show you a painted paper technique that creates amazing shapes and textures in the paper. It's great to use for collage, for backgrounds, or for specific textures that you're trying to replicate. So let's get on with it. So to start, we need paper. You need a liquidy paint of some sort. You need brushes, fairly large ones, not tiny ones. And the magic ingredient, cling wrap of any kind, sandwich wrap. So to be more specific, the paper I'm using is Strathmore 80-pound drawing paper, which I always use. You can use many different papers. The traditional thing is a watercolor technique, so you can use watercolor paper and watercolor paints. The paint I'm using is my silk paint because that's what I have and what I always use. It's liquidy. You could try watercolor, you could probably try alcohol ink, things that are liquidy and flow. The idea when you're putting the paint on the paper is you have to put a lot of paint on, and you should have a paper that's not super absorbent because you want it to sit there for a couple of seconds while you get your cling wrap out. So let's get started. I also, with these silk paints, just because I've tried it and it seems to work a bit better, is I add a little bit of water. Just a bit. I'm going to do that color and usually use some yellow. I don't do quite as much because I'm going to water it down. And then let's try a purple. You can do this with just one color, which I will show you in a minute. Or you can do multiple colors, as you probably saw in the introduction. So you get your paint ready, you have your brushes ready. Don't put anything nearby that you might want to knock over. And then get your piece of cling film out, about the size of the paper, a little bit bigger. I just sort of sit that on the side of my table. It'll cling a little bit, so it's all ready, because you don't have a lot of time to get it on the paper before the paint soaks in. Okay, so this is going to be a blue one. You have to get the paint on as quickly as possible. I guess I could have a bigger brush. And those puddles you're seeing, that's a good thing. You want some puddles. I could leave some white. I don't usually leave white, but I suppose you could. The cling film will squish it around a bit anyway. Now that I've got it covered, I'm just going to put some puddles because those are necessary for you to get the interesting result. Here comes the cling film. And you want those bubbles. You don't want to put it on evenly. In fact, I feel like I don't have enough bubbles. And then once you have that on, that's it. You put it away, put it down somewhere to dry. Oh, there's some glue on my paper underneath. That's okay. Now we'll try. This paper has one side seems a little more absorbent than the other, so I'm going to face the non-absorbent side up and see if that helps. This may have been a bit too watery. Let's try again. I'm going to do 3 colors, or, well, 2, I guess, because I only have 2 brushes. Put lots of, splash some yellow on. You can really play with this. Like, this might be very interesting, just, I'm going to be really brave and put the same brush in the purple. Okay, I didn't get my cling film ready. There. Looks like I made it anyway, but now I have to rip it off. Great fun for kids to do, although it is messy. And now the hard part is to leave this till it dries, which can take a few hours, depending how warm and dry it is in your house. So we'll come back later and have a look at that. And here are the end results of our experiments with cling wrap. The blue one really didn't work. It worked a little bit. There's some texture there. And I think what happened, I'm not quite sure, my dye might have been too watery, but I did notice afterwards that this particular paper is more absorbent on one side. So I think it went in too quickly. However, so I did another one while you weren't looking. This purple one, just as an example of one color, peeling this off. This is like 2 days later, so it's very dry. So none of that's going to move anymore. And that had some very interesting marks, like crystals or like frost on a window. Beautiful. And then I would just iron this to flatten it a little bit, iron it on the wrong side. And this one has the mixed colors, and it worked very well too. Both of these, I had turned the paper over to use the slightly less absorbent side. You really have to play with this technique. I mean, watercolor paper is absorbent, but it just depends so much on how fast you do it, how watery your ink is, probably the temperature, the humidity in the room. You just have to trial and error to get something that works. I'll just show you a few examples of ways that I have used the textures in images. This one is a lighthouse picture of a local famous lighthouse. And I did this paper especially for this. And really, that's what draws people's eye to this image, aside from the lighthouse. And then I did the rocks with that texture as well. And a cardinal here, it's not quite as obvious, but there's slight little textures. Rather than have flat red, there's a little bit of texture in the red. I'll leave you with a couple of other examples. Here's some whales, some very colorful ones I did a few years ago. And there's some dolphins. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video and you'll be inspired to use it in your own work. Bye for now.